Hello and welcome. It is time to let the day and all of its concerns simply fade away. Find your most comfortable position and gently close your eyes. Let's begin with a single, slow, deep breath. Breathe in deeply. As you breathe out, feel the tension begin to leave your body. There's nothing else you need to do tonight. It's nothing to focus on and nothing to remember. The story I am about to tell is just a quiet murmur in the background, a calm and steady presence. Tonight we will travel back to the 18th century to join a lone naturalist as he embarks on a great and challenging expedition into the heart of the Amazon rainforest. So just relax and allow the sound of my voice to accompany you as you drift towards a deep and peaceful sleep. Our story begins in the year 1768. For months, your world has been a place of predictable, monotonous rhythms. The groan of a ship's timbers, the snap of canvas sails in the wind, the endless slate-gray expanse of the Atlantic Ocean. You are Alistair Finch, a naturalist, a man of science in an age of burgeoning discovery. And you have left the familiar, ordered world of London behind for a singular purpose: to journey into the great, mysterious heart of the South American continent, the vast and little-known basin of the Amazon River. You are a disciple of the new science of taxonomy, a follower of the great Carl Linnaeus, who has given the world a system for naming and classifying all of creation. But this system, is built on a foundation of incomplete knowledge. The museums of Europe are filled with specimens from the temperate world. But the tropics, the great teeming torrid zone, remain largely a mystery, a place of rumor and legend. Your goal is to replace those legends with facts, to collect, to document, and to classify a part of the world that no trained naturalist has ever properly studied. After a long and wearying sea voyage, the ship finally makes landfall. Your first steps are not into a wild and untamed jungle, but onto the bustling, noisy docks of a colonial port town at the mouth of the great river. The town is a melting pot of cultures and ambitions, a last remote outpost of the European world. Portuguese soldiers in sweat-stained uniforms mingle with merchants, missionaries, and the hardened faces of slave traders. The air is thick with new and unfamiliar smells, the sweet, heavy scent of tropical blossoms, the spicy aroma of strange foods cooking over open fires, the rank smell of the muddy river at low tide, and the ever-present cloying scent of molasses and rum. The heat is a physical presence, a heavy, wet blanket that settles over you the moment you step off the ship. It is a profound, draining humidity that makes your fine English wool coat feel like an absurd and suffocating costume. This is your first lesson of the tropics. The climate itself is a force to be reckoned with, an adversary that will challenge you every single day. Spend the first few weeks in this port town, not exploring, but preparing. An expedition like yours is a massive logistical undertaking, and any mistake made here, in the relative comfort of civilization, could prove fatal in the wilderness. Your days are spent not in the forest, but in dusty warehouses and noisy markets, meticulously assembling the tools and supplies for your journey upriver. Your scientific equipment brought with you from London is checked and rechecked. There is your collecting case, a sturdy wooden box containing your butterfly net, geological hammer, and jars for collecting insects and small reptiles. There are reams of fine, heavy paper for pressing and drying plant specimens, and a portable plant press made of 2 sturdy wooden boards and leather straps. There are vials of arsenic, dangerous but necessary poison used to protect dried specimens from being eaten by insects. There are jars of alcohol for preserving fish and snakes. Most precious of all, there are your journals. They're blank. White pages waiting to be filled with the discoveries of a lifetime, along with pens, ink pots, and watercolor paints for sketching what you find. But the scientific equipment is only a small part of it. You must also procure the mundane necessities of survival. You purchase barrels of salt pork and ship's biscuit. The same tedious food you ate on the voyage over, a reliable, if joyless, source of sustenance. You buy trade goods to offer to the indigenous tribes you may encounter upriver, steel knives, colorful glass beads, and small mirrors. And most importantly, you purchase a good supply of cinchona bark, the so-called Jesuits' powder, a bitter, reddish dust that is the only known effective treatment for the malaria, the dreaded fever that you know will be a constant threat. Your most crucial task is hiring a crew. You are a man of science, but you are not a boatman, nor an explorer. You need local expertise. After many inquiries, you find a man, a weathered Portuguese trader named João, who has spent 20 years navigating the river's labyrinthine tributaries. He is a pragmatist, a man not impressed by your scientific ambitions, but who understands the language of commerce and the very real dangers of the river. He agrees, for a handsome price, to captain your vessel. Through Joe, you hire 2 more men, local caboclos, men of mixed European and indigenous ancestry. They are quiet, observant men who speak little, but whose knowledge of the forest is profound. They will be your guides, your hunters, and your protectors. They look at your elaborate equipment with a quiet amusement, their own tools consisting of little more than a sharp machete and a long-barreled shotgun. The vessel itself is a humble but sturdy craft called a batello. It is a long, shallow draft riverboat with a small arched thatch roof in the center to provide some shelter from the sun and the rain. It is not a vessel of comfort. It is a simple, functional tool for navigating the river. Under Zoe's supervision, your mountain of supplies is loaded and carefully stowed, every item packed to protect it from the ever-present damp. Finally, the day of departure arrives. You stand on the docks, watching the last of the supplies being loaded. A feeling of profound anticipation mixed with a quiet, thrilling fear. You are leaving the known world behind. Every map of this region is a vast, empty space, the river a simple, speculative line drawn through a continent marked unexplored. With a final push, the batello is freed from the dock. Joe takes the tiller, and your 2 guides pick up their long poles. Pushing the boat out into the current of the great, muddy river, sit under the thatched roof, your journal open on your lap, and watch as the port town, the last outpost of your world, grows smaller and smaller behind you. The sounds of the town, the shouting of merchants, the ringing of a church bell are slowly replaced by a new and overwhelming soundscape. A deep, humming, chittering, and buzzing chorus that emanates from the dense green walls of vegetation on either side of the river. The air grows thicker, heavier, laden with the scent of wet earth and blooming flowers. The river, which had seemed merely large in the port, now reveals its true scale. It is a vast, moving sea of brown water, dotted with floating islands of vegetation. The forest on either bank is not a collection of individual trees, but a single impenetrable wall of green, a solid mass of life that rises 100 feet into the sky. You are at the very edge of the Amazon, the great arterial vein of a continent, and as your small boat is taken by the current, you feel an immense sense of your own smallness. a lone, quiet observer entering a world that is ancient, powerful, and utterly indifferent to you and your scientific ambitions. The true expedition has just begun. The first days on the river are a lesson in scale. The Amazon is not merely a river, it is a moving ocean, a vast, powerful entity that dictates the rhythm of your life. Your small boat is a speck, a single, insignificant thought crawling across an immense green canvas. The days settle into a slow, monotonous, and yet utterly engrossing routine. You wake before dawn in the cool, misty air before the sun has risen to its full, oppressive power. The sounds of the night, the deep, resonant croaking of frogs, strange hoots and whistles of nocturnal birds are just beginning to fade, replaced by the rising chatter and hum of the daytime chorus. Your guides, who seem to require little sleep, are already tending a small fire, preparing a simple meal of dried fish and hard, coarse bread called farinha, made from cassava root. The work of moving the boat is slow and laborious. In the deep central channel, the current is your ally, pulling the boat steadily upriver. But near the banks, where the current is slack, the guides must use their long poles, planting them in the muddy riverbed and pushing the boat forward, inch by painstaking inch. Their movements are practiced and economical, a testament to a lifetime spent on these waters. The sun, when it rises above the canopy, is a thing of immense power. By midday, the heat is a physical weight, the air so thick with humidity that it feels difficult to breathe. All activity ceases. The boat is moored in the shade of an overhanging tree, and the crew rests in a state of quiet, sweat-soaked lethargy, waiting for the worst of the heat to pass. It is during these hours of forced stillness that you begin your work, your eyes scanning the dense wall of the riverbank, your mind trying to process the sheer, overwhelming abundance of life. Everywhere you look, there is green. Not a single uniform color, but 1,000 different shades, from the pale, almost yellow-green of new leaves to the dark, near black of the ancient foliage in the shadows. The vegetation is a tangled, chaotic tapestry of vines, ferns, palms, and immense trees, all competing for a small piece of the sun. From this wall of green, flashes of brilliant color erupt, the impossible scarlet and blue of a macaw, the electric purple of a flowering vine, the iridescent flash of a hummingbird's wings. The sounds are just as overwhelming. There is a constant, high-pitched, metallic hum of insects that never, ever stops. It is the bass line of the jungle's soundscape, a sound so pervasive that after a few days, you cease to consciously notice it, though you know its absence would be deafening. Woven into this are the sharp, chittering calls of birds, the strange, guttural roar of howler monkeys in the distance, and the constant soft splash and gurgle of the water against the hull of the boat. After several days of this slow travel, Joe steers the boat towards the bank into a small, calm inlet. "We make camp here for a time," he announces. "The ground is high. It is a good place to begin. The process of creating a habitable space in the jungle is a battle." Your two guides move with a quiet efficiency, their machetes flashing as they clear the dense undergrowth, creating a small circle of relative order in the chaos of the forest. A simple frame is erected from saplings, over which a large oiled canvas is stretched to create a roof, a vital shield against the sudden, violent downpours that can erupt with almost no warning. Your bed is a hammock strung between two trees, with a fine mesh of mosquito netting draped over it, single most important. Defense against the fevers that haunt the night air. From this small, precarious foothold, you begin your first true forays into the forest. Stepping away from the relative openness of the river is like entering a new world. The bright, direct sunlight is gone, replaced by a dim green, subaquatic light that filters down through the dense canopy far above. The air is still thick, and smells of damp earth, decaying leaves, and the sweet, heavy perfume of unseen flowers. Your first efforts are focused on botany. You find a large, woody vine, a liana, as thick as your arm, wrapped around the trunk of a great tree. From it hangs a cluster of extraordinary, trumpet-shaped purple flowers. You set to work with the methodical patience of the collector. With a sharp knife, you carefully cut a section of the vine, ensuring you have a complete specimen with leaves, stem, and several of the flowers. You lay it out on a piece of oilcloth on the forest floor and open your journal. First, you record the basic information: the date, the location, the general conditions. Then, you begin the detailed description. You measure the length and width of the leaves, note their shape ovate. You right-end the pattern of their veins. You describe the flower in intricate detail, the 5 fused petals, the texture of the corolla, the precise number and arrangement of the stamens and pistils within. You make a small, precise sketch in your journal, and then a larger, more detailed drawing on a separate sheet, adding notes about the color, a shade of purple for which you have no name. Finally, the specimen is carefully arranged between 2 sheets of thick, absorbent paper and placed into the plant press. The leather straps pulled tight to begin the long process of drying it for the journey home. 1 plant. The process has taken over an hour. You turn your attention to the insects. They are everywhere, a constant, crawling, flying, buzzing presence. You swing your net and capture a butterfly, its wings the color of a sunset. In your killing jar, its struggles cease. Back at the camp, you carefully take it from the jar, its wings a delicate, dusty marvel. With fine forceps, you spread its wings and push a single, slender pin through its thorax, securing it to the cork bottom of your collection box. You write a tiny number on a scrap of paper and pin it next to the specimen. Then you open your journal, and next to the corresponding number, you record the details of its capture. The day's light begins to fade, and you return to the camp as dusk falls with astonishing speed. But your work is not over. By the light of a flickering candle, you sit at your small makeshift table. You meticulously review your notes from the day, adding details and observations while they are still fresh in your mind. You apply your watercolors to the sketch of the purple flower, trying to capture the exact hue before the preserved specimen loses its color. You check your plant press, replacing the now damp sheets of paper with dry ones, a crucial step to prevent the specimens from rotting. As you work, the sounds of the jungle shift and change, the daytime chorus replaced by the creatures of the night. Oh, you are exhausted, your body aching from the humidity and the unaccustomed labor. And as you finally close your journal and prepare for sleep, a profound sense of satisfaction settles over you. It has been a day of painstaking, meticulous, and at times tedious work. But you have captured and recorded 2 small, previously unknown pieces of this vast, intricate world. You have taken 2 tiny, ordered facts from a world of magnificent chaos, and tomorrow you will wake and do it all again. After a week at the first base camp, the initial sense of wonder begins to evolve into something more profound, a deep and humbling awareness of your own limitations. The sheer, overwhelming scale of the biodiversity is something that no book or lecture could have ever prepared you for. For every species of plant you meticulously press and document, you are surrounded by 100 others you lack the time to even look at. For every iridescent beetle you capture and pin, 1,000 others of every shape and size imaginable scuttle past on the forest floor or fly unseen in the high canopy. Your Linnaean system, which seemed so comprehensive and powerful in the quiet halls of a London museum, feels like a tiny, fragile net cast into an infinite ocean of life. The task you have set for yourself to document and classify this world now seems not just daunting, but impossible. It is a humbling realization, but it does not lead to despair. Instead, it instills in you a new, more focused patience. You cannot catalog everything, but you can catalog what is in front of you. With as much care and precision as you can muster, the environment itself continues to be a relentless teacher, instructing you in the practical realities of life in the tropics. One afternoon, the sky darkens with an unnerving speed. The constant hum of the jungle falls silent, an eerie, expectant hush. Then the rain begins. It is not the gentle, persistent drizzle of England. It is a solid, vertical wall of water, a deluge that pounds against your canvas shelter with the sound of 1,000 drums. The world outside your small camp is erased behind a churning gray curtain. The ground turns to a thick, sucking mud in minutes. You and your crew work frantically to dig small trenches around your shelter to divert the torrents of water, protecting your precious supplies, and most importantly, your even more precious paper. The rain stops as suddenly as it began, leaving behind a world that is dripping, steamy, and somehow even more alive than before. But the rain has left its mark. A fine greenish layer of mold has begun to grow on a leather satchel. A corner of your spare journal, not properly protected, is warped and stained. The battle against decay, you learn, is constant. The insects, your objects of scientific fascination, are also a source of constant, maddening discomfort. At dusk, a thick cloud of mosquitoes descends upon the camp, their high-pitched whine a prelude to 1,000 tiny, stinging bites. Your netting provides protection, but any venture outside this sanctuary is a misery. During the day, biting flies, small and black, plague your every move. Their bites leaving painful, itching welts on any exposed skin, and the ants are a marvel of relentless industry. They get into everything. You learn to store all your food suspended from ropes and to check your boots every morning for any unwanted guests. It is in these daily struggles that you come to truly appreciate the profound knowledge of your guides. Your science is abstract, systematic, focused on classification. Theirs is practical, holistic, and focused on survival. One day, you are struggling to identify a small, unremarkable-looking shrub. One of your guides, observing your frustration, points to it with his machete. In a mixture of Portuguese and a local Tupi dialect, he explains, the leaves, when crushed, create a lather for washing. The bark, when boiled, produces a tea that can soothe a fever. The roots, if prepared incorrectly, are a potent poison. It is a lesson in a different kind of classification, one based not on the number of stamens, but on the deep ancestral knowledge of use and effect. You begin to rely on them more, to see the world not just through your naturalist's eyes, but through theirs. They point out a snake, a venomous furulence, so perfectly camouflaged among the dead leaves that you would have stepped on it without a second thought. They show you the tracks of a tapir and the claw marks of a jaguar on a tree trunk. They teach you to recognize the calls of different monkeys and to predict the weather from the behavior of the birds. You are the expedition scientist, but you are also its student. Your own work becomes more confident, more ambitious. You are no longer content to simply collect what is directly in your path. You construct a simple trap, baited with fruit. And the next morning you find a small, bright-eyed opossum inside, which you sketch and document before releasing. At night, you hang a white sheet behind a lantern, and it is soon covered with a breathtaking array of moths in every size and color, their wings like patterned velvet. You collect dozens of new specimens. From the river, you catch a fish unlike any you have ever seen, its body covered in bony plates of armor, and its mouth ringed with strange fleshy barbels. You preserve it in a large jar of alcohol, a monstrous and beautiful addition to your growing collection. The initial phase of your journey, the acclimatization, is drawing to a close. You have learned the rhythms of the river, the challenges of the environment, and the necessity of humility. Your collection boxes are beginning to fill. Your journal is thick with notes and sketches, and your mind is overflowing with questions. After 2 weeks, Joe declares that it is time to move on. "This is the edge," he says, gesturing to the vast, unbroken forest. "The real river, the deep river, is waiting." The camp is dismantled. Specimens are packed with painstaking care, and the Botello is loaded once more. As you push off from the muddy bank and rejoin the main current, you feel a new sense of purpose. The river's edge has taught you how to see. Now you are ready to venture deeper, to follow the winding waterways into the true, unknown heart of the great forest. The river grows narrower, the banks close in, and the great wide expanse of muddy water gives way to darker, clearer tributaries that snake their way into the deep forest like secret passages. The light here is different, more subdued. The sun struggling to pierce a canopy that is now so dense it forms a near-continuous roof over the waterway. The sounds, too, are more intimate, more immediate. You feel as though you have left the grand open foyer of the Amazon and are now entering its hidden inner chambers. After several days of travel into this new, more enclosed world, your guide, Joe, finds a suitable location for a new, more permanent base camp. It is a small, rocky promontory overlooking a quiet, slow-moving lagoon, a place that offers a natural defense against the encroaching vegetation and a clear view of the surrounding forest. Here you will spend not just weeks, but perhaps months, and it is from this base that the true, methodical work of your expedition will be conducted. Life at the new camp settles into a disciplined and meticulous routine, a structure of scientific inquiry imposed upon the magnificent chaos of the jungle. This routine is your anchor, your defense against the overwhelming scale of the task before you. Your day begins in the pre-dawn darkness, long before the sun has risen. You wake in your hammock to the strange, resonant calls of howler monkeys greeting the coming day. By the light of a flickering tallow candle, you prepare your equipment for the day's foray. You check the fine silk mesh of your butterfly net for any new tears. You sharpen your small dissecting knife on a whetstone until its edge is like a razor. You mix a fresh pot of India ink for your pens and ensure your watercolor cakes are clean and ready. Every tool is inspected with care. For your ability to document this world is entirely dependent on these humble instruments of wood, steel, and paper. After a simple breakfast, you and one of the guides, a quiet, watchful man named Matteo, prepare to enter the forest. You carry your collecting case, your journal, and your plant press. Matteo carries only his long machete and a shotgun, his eyes and ears constantly scanning the environment for both opportunity and danger. You do not march through the forest. You move with a slow, deliberate patience. For the wonders of the jungle are not found in great vistas, but in the infinite detail of the small. Your gaze is not on the horizon, but on the world at your feet, on the trunks of trees, and on the undersides of leaves. You have trained your eyes to look for the unnatural, for the telltale sign of an insect camouflaged as a dead leaf, for the strange shape of a fungus growing on a fallen log, for the subtle gleam of a beetle's carapace in the dim light. Hours can pass in which you cover no more than a few hundred yards. The work is a form of active meditation, a state of total focused awareness. Then you see it. High in the branches of a moss-covered tree, nestled in the crook of a limb, is a splash of impossible color, a cluster of orchids. Their petals a vibrant, waxy yellow, speckled with the deepest crimson. It is a species you have never seen before, one that does not exist in any of the books or collections in Europe. Now the craft of collection begins. The orchid is 30 feet up, far out of reach. Matteo, without a word, begins to climb, his bare feet finding purchase on the thick, woody vines that encircle the tree trunk. He moves with a fluid primate grace, and soon he is perched on the branch beside the flower. With his knife, he carefully saws off the section of the branch on which the orchid is growing, ensuring he does not damage its delicate roots. He lowers the entire section down to you on a length of cord. You carry the prize back to camp as if it were a holy relic. There, the meticulous work of documentation begins. First, you make a series of detailed sketches in your journal. You draw the entire plant, capturing its overall form and the way the roots cling to the bark. You then create a separate, larger drawing of a single flower, a botanical illustration of the utmost precision. With your magnifying glass and your dissecting knife, you begin the careful work of scientific description. You gently pull one of the flowers apart. You count the petals and the sepals. You identify the specialized lip-like petal, the labellum, and you sketch its unique shape. You examine the central column, the fused reproductive organs of the flower, and you describe it in the formal, precise language of Latin, the universal tongue of science. Every detail, no matter how small, is noted down. Finally, the entire specimen, branch and all, is placed carefully into the largest of your plant presses to begin the long process of drying. The afternoon might be dedicated to a different kingdom of life. You set your sights on the birds. This requires a different kind of patience. You find a spot near a fruiting tree and conceal yourself in the undergrowth, remaining utterly still for an hour or more. Your reward is the arrival of a trogon, a bird of breathtaking beauty, its chest a brilliant rose red, and its back a shimmering, iridescent green. You watch it through your field glasses, noting its behavior, the way it plucks a fruit from the branch, the soft, cooing call it makes. You sketch it in your journal, a quick, fluid drawing to capture its posture. But a sketch, a description, is not enough for the scientific societies of London. They require a specimen, a physical object that can be measured, compared, and preserved. It is a part of your work that you do not enjoy, but you accept it as a necessity of your craft. You give a quiet signal to Mateo. He raises the shotgun, which is loaded with a special light charge of fine powder and tiny pellets, designed to kill the bird without destroying its plumage. There is a soft, muffled pop, and the trogon falls from its branch. Back at camp, the work of preservation begins. It is a delicate surgical procedure. You lay the bird on a clean cloth. With your scalpel, you make a single long incision down its breastbone. You gently work the skin away from the muscle and bone. Using a dry, absorbent powder made from cornmeal to soak up any blood and keep the feathers clean, you carefully sever the wing and leg bones, detaching the skin from the main carcass. The skull is left in place, but the brain and eyes are removed through an opening at the back. The inside of the skin is then meticulously cleaned and dusted with a fine layer of your arsenic powder, a poison that will protect it from being eaten by mites and beetles. Finally, you stuff the skin with cotton and dried grasses. Plumping it out to approximate the bird's living shape, and you stitch the incision closed with a fine needle and thread. The result is a sturdy skin, a light, dry, and durable specimen that captures the bird's size, shape, and magnificent plumage. It is labeled with a numbered tag, and the corresponding entry in your journal details its discovery. It is another small, perfect fact, rescued from the jungle and preserved for the world. The days at your camp by the quiet lagoon fall into a productive and deeply focused rhythm. You have processed your first orchid and your first trogon, but these are merely the opening lines in what you intend to be a great encyclopedia of this new world. Each day is dedicated to a different aspect of the natural kingdom, each requiring its own unique set of skills, its own form of patience. Many of your most remarkable discoveries are made not in the bright heat of the day, but in the deep, velvet darkness of the night. As dusk settles and the familiar daytime hum of the forest is replaced by the nocturnal chorus, you begin a different kind of work. Your guides have helped you hang a large white linen sheet stretched taut between two trees at the edge of the clearing. In front of it, you place your brightest oil lantern, its polished reflector concentrating the light into a brilliant beacon. Then you sit on your small camp stool, your killing jars and forceps arranged beside you, and you wait. For the first hour, little happens. Then the first visitors arrive. A few small, drab moths fluttering erratically towards the light. But as the darkness deepens, the spectacle begins. The sheet becomes a living tapestry, a gathering place for the winged creatures of the night. Moths of every imaginable size, shape, and pattern are drawn to the glow. There are tiny micromoths, no larger than a grain of rice, their wings etched with intricate metallic patterns. There are great hawk moths, their bodies as large as a small bird, their wings beating with a low, audible hum. There are moths that mimic wasps, moths that look like dead leaves and giant. Pale green Luna moths with long, elegant tails. But it is not only moths. The light attracts a staggering diversity of other insects. Giant beetles, their carapaces gleaming like black armor, come crashing out of the darkness and land on the sheet with a heavy thud. Some have horns like a rhinoceros. Others have long, gracefully curved antennae that are twice the length of their bodies. Praying mantises, the color of bright green leaves or pale pink flowers, arrive to hunt the smaller insects, moving with a slow, hypnotic grace. Katydids, with their long, delicate legs and leaf-like wings, cling to the fabric, their forms a masterpiece of natural camouflage. You cannot possibly collect them all. The work becomes one of careful, considered selection. You are searching for the unknown, the unusual, the most striking examples of this incredible diversity. You move with a quiet focus, a killing jar in one hand. For the delicate moths, a jar charged with a few drops of ether ensures a quick, peaceful death that will not damage the fine, dusty scales on their wings. For the hard-shelled beetles, your forceps are used to gently pick them from the sheet. This vigil can last for hours, a long, silent, and deeply meditative study. As you slowly fill your collection boxes with the jeweled and patterned creatures of the Amazonian night. Other days are dedicated to the search for reptiles and amphibians, the cool-blooded, secretive inhabitants of the forest floor and the water's edge. This requires a different technique, not of attraction, but of careful, quiet searching. You and your guide, Mateo, move slowly along the bank of a small, clear stream that feeds the lagoon. You turn over damp, rotting logs, peer into the dark crevices between rocks, and gently part the broad, waxy leaves of water plants. Mateo motions for you to be still, pointing to a large, overhanging leaf above the water. You look, and at first you see nothing but the green of the leaf. Then your eyes resolve a shape upon it. It is a frog, but one unlike any you have ever read about. Its back is a bright, vibrant lime green, but its underside, the skin of its belly, is perfectly transparent. You can see through it, can clearly make out the tiny, beating heart, the coiled intestines, the pale bones of its legs. It is a glass frog, a living window into the miracle of anatomy. Capturing it requires a slow, steady hand. You gently maneuver a wide-mouthed jar beneath the leaf, and with a quick, upward motion, you scoop the tiny creature into it. Back at camp, the frog is dispatched with a drop of alcohol and then submerged in a larger jar filled with spirits of wine, a clear liquid that will preserve its delicate tissues and you hope some of its incredible translucence. You seal the jar's cork lid with a layer of dark wax to make it airtight, and you affix a paper label, carefully noting the species number, the date, and the precise location of its discovery. Amidst all this collecting, you dedicate a portion of each day to the art of illustration. You understand that your preserved specimens, while vital, are a pale imitation of the living reality. The alcohol will leach the color from the frog. The pressed orchid will turn a uniform, papery brown. Brilliant iridescent sheen of a beetle's carapace will dull with time. Your drawings, then, are not just a supplement to your collection. They are a crucial form of data in themselves. You sit at your table, a freshly pinned beetle in front of you, its legs and antennae carefully arranged. You use a magnifying glass, holding it in one eye as you work. The process is slow and exacting. You begin with a faint pencil outline, measuring each part of the insect's body to ensure the proportions are perfect. Then, with a fine-nibbed pen, you ink the details. The tiny pits on the surface of its elytra, the delicate feathery structure of its antennae, the complex joints of its legs. Finally, you apply the watercolor. It is not a process of broad washes, but of tiny, meticulous strokes. You mix your colors on a small ceramic palette, constantly adjusting the hue to capture the precise metallic green-gold sheen of the beetle's shell. You add a touch of dark indigo to the shadows, a fleck of white led to capture a highlight. The work requires a surgeon's steady hand and a jeweler's eye. The resulting illustration is a thing of both scientific accuracy and artistic beauty, a perfect fusion of your two great passions. At the end of each long, exhausting day, After the last moth has been pinned and the last watercolor wash is dried, you turn to the most important tool of your entire expedition, your journal. This is the core of your work, the vessel that holds everything together. It contains more than just measurements and descriptions. It is a record of your thoughts, your observations on animal behavior, your theories on the intricate relationships between the plants and insects you find. It is here that you note the change in the weather, the height of the river, the quality of the day's hunting, and it is here that you allow yourself a rare moment of personal reflection, writing by candlelight about the profound sense of awe and insignificance you feel. A lone, curious mind adrift in this great green living cathedral. After several weeks at the lagoon camp, your collection has grown from a handful of curiosities into a respectable and burgeoning archive of the natural world. The cork-lined boxes that were once mostly empty are now neatly filled with rows of iridescent beetles, jewel-toned wasps, and moths with wings like maps of strange constellations. The stack of paper in your plant press is thick with the drying leaves and flowers of dozens of different species, and a growing number of glass jars, their contents suspended in the pale yellow of the alcohol. Line a makeshift shelf, a silent pickled menagerie of fish, frogs, and snakes. This growing collection brings with it a new and constant set of anxieties. It is one thing to collect a specimen. It is another thing entirely to protect it from the jungle itself. The Amazon, it seems, is constantly trying to reclaim what you have taken. Your greatest adversary is the humidity, a relentless, invisible force that seeks to undo all your work. The primary enemy is mold. Every morning, if the sun is shining, you perform a ritual of preservation. You carefully open your plant presses and lay the absorbent sheets of paper out on a large sun-warmed rock. The damp paper must be replaced with dry sheets every day, a tedious but essential task to prevent the delicate plant tissues from turning into a black, fuzzy, and scientifically useless mess. You have a constant, small, smoky fire going near your work tent, not just for cooking, but to create a pocket of drier air. The smell of wood smoke and the faint, acrid scent of arsenic have become the permanent perfumes of your scientific endeavor. The other great threat comes from the living creatures you are not trying to collect. The ants, in particular, are a legion of tiny, determined thieves. You learn a bitter lesson early on when a column of small, red ants discovers a box of newly pinned butterflies and, in the space of an afternoon, carries them away piece by piece, leaving behind only a few stray legs and a dusting of wing scales. After that, you construct a safe table for your most precious specimens, placing each of its 4 legs in a small tin dish filled with water, creating a miniature moat that the ants cannot cross. It is a constant, quiet war of ingenuity and persistence against the forces of decay and consumption. The evenings, after the day's collecting and preservation is done, are dedicated to the intellectual side of your craft. By candlelight, you transform your small, humid tent into a satellite office of the Royal Society. This is the work of classification. You might take all the beetles you have collected of a certain family and lay them out on a white cloth. You then begin the slow, methodical process of grouping them, of finding the hidden order in their diversity. You use your magnifying glass to examine the minute details that separate one species from another. The number of segments in an antenna, the shape of the mandibles, the precise pattern of pits and grooves on their wing casings. This is the heart of the Linnean system, the creation of order through careful observation. You have brought a few precious leather-bound books with you on this journey. Your most treasured is a copy of Linnaeus's Systema Naturae, the foundational text of your entire discipline. You spend hours poring over its dense Latin text, comparing the descriptions of known species with the specimens in front of you. Often, you find a match, a satisfying click of recognition as you identify a beetle or a plant already known to science. But then there are the moments of pure, quiet thrill. You are examining a small, dark weevil with an unusually long snout. You search through the pages of your reference book, but there is nothing that matches it. You check again, your heart beating a little faster. You realize with a dawning sense of profound excitement that this tiny, humble creature is unknown. It has a physical form, but it does not yet have a name. It is a scientific ghost waiting for you to give it an identity. The act of naming is a quiet, solemn, and deeply personal part of your work. You do not choose names lightly. Names should be descriptive, a small piece of data in itself. You decide to name the weevil Curculeonocetus for its long nose-like snout. You come across a new species of frog with a vibrant leaf-green back, and you name it Hylovoridis. Another time, in a moment of respect for your quiet and knowledgeable guide, you name a beautiful, newly discovered passion flower Passiflora Mateo. In these quiet moments, by candlelight in the heart of the Amazon, you are performing a kind of scientific baptism, transforming the unknown into the known, one Latin name at a time. Sometimes, in this process of study and classification, you experience a moment of deeper synthesis. You are looking at the butterfly you pinned last week, a beautiful blue morpha. You consult your journal and realize that the caterpillar you sketched a month ago, the one you found eating the leaves of a specific rubber-leafed plant, is in fact the larval stage of this very butterfly. Then you remember from your field notes that the trogon you collected was eating the small berry-like fruits of that same plant.
Ow.
In that moment, the different threads of your collection come together. You are no longer just seeing a plant, a caterpillar, a butterfly, and a bird as separate, isolated specimens. You are seeing them as a single interconnected story. You are seeing a small piece of the intricate, invisible web of life that binds this entire forest together. It is a glimpse of a new kind of science, a science not just of naming, but of understanding. Your craft is now fully honed. You have established a routine for collecting, a system for preserving, and a method for classifying. You have created a small, fragile island of scientific order in a vast sea of untamed life. The meticulous work of documentation has yielded a collection that is both a physical archive and an intellectual puzzle you are just beginning to solve. You have mastered the river's edge. Now, a new restlessness begins to stir. It is time to face the greater challenges and the greater wonders that await you deeper in the forest. After 2 months of meticulous work at the lagoon camp, a new kind of restlessness takes hold. Your collection is substantial. Your understanding of the river's edge ecosystem is growing. But you are acutely aware that you have been living on the mere threshold of this great wilderness. The true, unknown heart of the forest, the world that exists away from the wide, sunlit avenues of the river remains a mystery. It is time to leave the relative safety of the boat and venture inland. The journey is now on foot. The large riverboat is left behind, secured in a hidden cove under the watchful eye of Zhuo. You, your 2 guides, and a small party of hired porters from a nearby indigenous village Now carry everything you need on your backs. The transition is immediate and profound. The world shrinks. There is no longer a horizon, no longer a wide expanse of sky. Your entire existence is now confined to a narrow, freshly cut tunnel through a world of green. Progress is measured not in miles, but in yards. There are no paths. Your guide, Matteo, walks at the front of the line, his machete rising and falling in a steady, hypnotic rhythm, clearing a thin trail through the dense, tangled undergrowth. The work is brutally exhausting, and the pace is agonizingly slow. You're no longer gliding on a river current. You are fighting for every single step. The environment of the deep forest is a world unto itself. The air is still heavy and saturated with the smell of damp earth and chlorophyll. The light is a dim, eternal twilight, the sun a distant memory filtered through multiple layers of canopy far above. The cacophony of the riverbank is replaced by a different set of sounds, the rustle of unseen animals in the undergrowth, the startling cry of a strange bird, and the constant, unnerving drip of moisture from the leaves above, even when it is not raining. It is a world that feels enclosed, ancient, and deeply secretive. Your camps are no longer the semi-permanent affairs of the riverbank. They are now small, temporary clearings, hacked out of the jungle at the end of each exhausting day. Your only shelter is your hammock and its vital mosquito netting, with a simple oiled canvas sheet strung up above it to ward off the rain. You are far more exposed, far more vulnerable, and you feel the immense, indifferent presence of the wilderness pressing in on you from all sides. It is here in the deep forest that the abstract dangers you had read about in London become immediate, tangible realities. The perils are not constant, dramatic events, but rather a low, persistent hum of risk that requires a new and heightened state of vigilance. One afternoon, as you kneel to examine a strange, brightly colored fungus on a fallen log, Matteo suddenly puts a firm hand on your shoulder, freezing you in place. His eyes are fixed on a patch of dead leaves just beside your boot. You follow his gaze, and at first you see nothing. Then, a section of the leaf litter seems to resolve itself, and your blood runs cold. It is a snake, a large bushmaster, its body a perfect, deadly imitation of the decaying ground upon which it lies. It has not moved. It is simply there, a silent, patient vessel of venom, no more than 2 feet from where your hand was about to rest. You back away with a slow, deliberate care that you did not know you possessed. The snake, disturbed by your movement, uncoils with a lazy fluidity and disappears into the undergrowth. The encounter is over in less than a minute. There was no hiss, no strike, but it leaves you with a profound and lasting chill. Forest is not actively hostile, but it is filled with a casual, indifferent lethality. A moment of inattention, a single careless step, is all that separates life from a swift and agonizing death. You develop a new way of seeing, a new way of walking. Your eyes are constantly scanning the ground before you. Your hands are careful about where they rest. Every log is treated as a potential hiding place for a snake. Every leaf is a possible camouflage for a scorpion. The insects, too, reveal a more menacing side. You are no longer just dealing with the nuisance of mosquitoes. You see a monkey in the canopy above, scratching furiously at a large, swollen lump on its back. And your guide explains that it is the work of a botfly, an insect that lays its eggs under the skin of living mammals, its larvae growing in a parasitic burrow. You feel a new, crawling horror at the thought, and find yourself swatting away every large fly with a newfound urgency. The greatest peril, however, is not a venomous creature or a parasitic insect. It is the forest itself. One day, you spot a flash of brilliant blue in the undergrowth, a tiny, exquisite poison dart frog. Eager to get a closer look, you step off the narrow, freshly cut trail, pushing your way through a few large ferns. You spend a few minutes sketching the frog in your journal, captivated by its beauty. When you are done, you turn to go back to the path, but it is gone. You are surrounded on all four sides by a seamless, identical wall of green. There is no landmark, no sign of the trail, no indication of which direction you came from. A hot, sharp spike of panic pierces your scientific calm. The sounds of the jungle, which had been a fascinating backdrop, now seem menacing, alien. You are utterly, terrifyingly lost. You shout for your guide, your voice sounding small and weak in the vastness of the forest. You are about to give in to a blind, running panic when you hear a low whistle in response, surprisingly close. You call out again, and Mateo's voice answers, guiding you back the 20 yards to the trail. You feel a wave of relief so profound it leaves you weak-kneed, followed by a deep sense of shame. You do not leave the path, Mateo says, his voice not angry, but firm, the voice of a teacher instructing a foolish child. Here the forest watches you. You do not watch it. You leave the path, you are gone. The lesson is clear. Your compass and your maps are useless here. Your only lifeline, your only hope of survival, is the knowledge and experience of the men you have hired. Your scientific mind may be able to classify this world, but only their ancestral wisdom can navigate it. Having learned the hard lessons of vigilance and dependency, your approach to the forest changes. The fear does not vanish, but it settles into a deep background hum of respect. This new awareness, this constant state of heightened observation, paradoxically allows you to see the world more clearly than ever before. And with this new clarity, the wonders of the deep forest begin to reveal themselves. The discoveries you make here are stranger, more specialized, and more marvelous than anything you found by the wide, sunlit river. One day, while hacking a path through a dense, swampy area, your guide points to what looks like a collection of large, floating leaves in a stagnant pool of black water. But upon closer inspection, you realize it is a single, massive leaf, a perfect circle nearly 6 feet in diameter, with a high, upturned rim. It is the leaf of the giant water lily, the Victoria amazonica, a botanical marvel so grand and so perfectly engineered, it seems more like a work of architecture than a plant. You spend the entire day sketching it, documenting the intricate, girder-like structure of veins on its underside. They give it its incredible strength. The wonders are often found in the art of deception. The forest is a grand masquerade, and you take a quiet, scientific delight in uncovering its secrets. You reach out to pluck an exceptionally beautiful orchid, only to have the flower unfold a pair of delicate legs and fly away. It is not a flower at all, but a species of praying mantis, a perfect floral mimic. You spend an hour watching what you believe to be a dead brown twig, only to see it slowly, deliberately begin to walk, revealing itself as a stick insect. You find caterpillars that have evolved to look exactly like the head of a small snake, complete with false eyes, a terrifying and effective defense against predators. Each of these discoveries is a small intellectual victory, a puzzle presented and solved. You fill the pages of your journal with detailed drawings of these masters of camouflage, marveling at the slow, patient, and infinitely creative power of natural selection. a concept for which your century has not yet found a name. There are moments of profound silent awe. One evening, as you sit quietly at the edge of the camp, you see a movement in the shadows. It is a jaguar, the great silent predator of this continent. It has come to a small stream to drink. It is not aware of your presence. Its beautifully spotted coat ripples over its powerful muscles. It is not the slavering monster of sailors' tales. It is a thing of sublime, terrifying grace. You do not even think of your rifle. You simply watch, motionless, your heart pounding in your chest, until the great cat has drunk its fill and melts back into the darkness. It is not a specimen to be collected, but a rare and powerful glimpse into the very soul of the wilderness. But the jungle gives with one hand and takes with the other. The perils are not always as dramatic as a venomous snake or a prowling jaguar. They can be slow, insidious, and internal. Your supplies of European food have long since run out. Your diet now consists of what your guides can hunt or forage: the tough, smoky meat of monkeys or wild pigs, strange, starchy tubers, and the occasional fish. The lack of familiar tastes, of simple bread and cheese, becomes a source of deep, gnawing weariness. And then the fever comes. It begins with a deep, bone-aching chill that racks your body, even in the sweltering heat. Your teeth chatter uncontrollably. Then the chill gives way to a consuming fire. A burning fever that leaves your skin hot and dry, your mind a confused, delirious fog. The world dissolves into a nightmare of sweating, shivering, and strange, disjointed dreams. You are vaguely aware of your guides tending to you, forcing you to drink a bitter, foul-tasting tea brewed from the bark of a local tree. You lose all track of time. For days, you are completely helpless, your life entirely in the hands of these two men. You are no longer a European scientist leading an expedition. You are a sick child, weak and vulnerable, utterly dependent on the kindness and knowledge of your companions. The experience is terrifying, but it is also profoundly humbling. It burns away the last of your intellectual arrogance, replacing it with a deep, personal respect for the people and the environment you have come to study. Slowly, the fever breaks. It leaves you incredibly weak, your body thin and wasted, but it leaves you alive. During the long, slow days of your recovery, you do not have the strength to collect or to document. You simply lie in your hammock, watching the play of light in the canopy above, listening to the symphony of the jungle. It is during this time that the psychological weight of your isolation settles upon you most heavily. You have not spoken your own language beyond the simple, functional Portuguese you use with João in months. You pull a worn, much-folded letter from your travel case, a letter from your wife. You read the familiar words, her descriptions of the changing seasons in London, of a visit to a museum, of a conversation with a colleague. The letter is a dispatch from another universe. The world it describes a world of cities, of order, of cool gray skies, of intellectual companionships, is more distant and unreal than the vibrant, chaotic, and dangerous world that surrounds you. You are filled with a longing so profound it is a physical ache. Your recovery is slow, but as your strength returns, you find that the experience of the fever has changed you. You have been tested by the deep forest, awed by its wonders, and brought to your knees by its invisible dangers. Your scientific curiosity is now tempered with a hard-won wisdom, a deep and personal understanding of the powerful, beautiful, and utterly unforgiving world you have dared to enter. Your recovery from the fever is a slow and gradual process, but it leaves you with a sharpened sense of purpose, a clarity born from having faced your own fragility. You feel an urgency to make the most of your remaining time in this remote wilderness. Driven by this new resolve, you push your small party further. Following a stream that your guide, Matteo, believes leads to a place of many waters. After 2 days of hacking through dense bamboo thickets, the forest suddenly opens up. You stand at the edge of a wide, clear basin, a kind of natural amphitheater carved into the landscape. A series of small waterfalls cascade down moss-covered cliffs on the far side, feeding a crystal-clear lake, a rare jewel in the typically murky waters of the Amazon. The air here is cooler, filled with the gentle sound of falling water. You have stumbled upon a small, isolated ecosystem, a hidden valley that seems to have been sheltered from the outside world for millennia. This place is a naturalist's paradise. The biodiversity here is staggering, and many of the species are subtly different from those you have documented in the lower forest. The orchids that cling to the wet cliff faces are of a different, more vibrant hue. The butterflies that patrol the lake's edge have a unique pattern on their wings. It is a living laboratory of evolution, and you work with a quiet, focused intensity, aware that every moment here is a precious gift. It is here that your scientific perspective undergoes its final, profound transformation. You are no longer just a collector, a classifier of individual things. You begin to see the intricate and beautiful connections that bind this place together. You observe a species of hawk moth with an incredibly long proboscis, and you realize it is the only creature physically capable of pollinating a specific, long-throated white orchid that blooms only at night. You watch as a troop of small, black-headed squirrel monkeys methodically strips the fruit from a particular palm tree, and you understand that they are the tree's sole means of dispersing its seeds. You begin to fill your journal not just with sketches of single specimens, but with diagrams of these relationships. Webs of dependency that link the flower to the insect, the fruit to the mammal. You are moving beyond the simple. What of your Linnean training and beginning to grasp the far more complex and wonderful? How you are no longer just cataloging the inhabitants of this world. You are beginning to understand how they live together. Your presence in this isolated valley does not go unnoticed. One morning, you emerge from your tent to find 2 men standing silently at the edge of your camp.
Oh.
They are not your guides. They are strangers, members of an indigenous tribe. Their skin adorned with intricate patterns of red and black paint, they're bearing one of quiet, watchful confidence. They carry long, elegant blowpipes and quivers of small, poison-tipped darts. There is a moment of tense silence. But your guide Matteo steps forward, his hands open and empty, and speaks to them in a soft, guttural language that you have never heard before. There is a cautious exchange. These people, Matteo explains, have lived in this valley for centuries and have had almost no contact with the outside world. Over the next few days, a quiet, respectful relationship develops. You, now humbled by your experiences, do not see them as primitive subjects to be studied. You see them as the true masters of this environment. You watch as their shaman, an ancient wrinkled man, gathers plants from the forest. He shows you a vine that produces the paralyzing poison, curare, for their darts. He points out a fungus that can be used to stop bleeding, and the leaves of a plant that, when chewed, can numb the pain of a toothache. His knowledge is not written in books, but it is as deep and as systematic as any of your scientific texts. It is a different kind of science, a science of survival and symbiosis. You trade with them. For one of your precious steel machetes, they give you a beautifully crafted blowpipe, its wood polished to a dark sheen. For a handful of colorful glass beads, you receive a clay pot, surface decorated with geometric patterns that tell a story you cannot read. These are not just artifacts. They are the products of a culture in perfect harmony with the world you are struggling merely to survive in. This quiet, cautious encounter with the forest's human inhabitants is perhaps the most profound discovery of your entire expedition. But you know that your time in this hidden paradise is coming to an end. Your supplies have reached a critical point. The last of your biscuit is gone. Your reserves of ink are running low, and you have filled nearly every page of your journals. More importantly, your collection is now vast and precious, and the thought of losing it to some accident or misfortune by pushing further is unbearable. The expedition has reached its natural conclusion. It is with a heavy heart that you make the decision to turn back. You take one last look at the waterfalls cascading into the clear lake, a place that no European has ever seen before, and perhaps never will again. You feel a pang of melancholy, a sense of leaving a part of yourself behind in this quiet, wondrous place. The journey back to the main river is as arduous as the journey in, but your perspective has changed. You are no longer just a scientist in a strange land. You have survived its perils, been awed by its wonders, and had a brief, humbling encounter with its people. You are returning with more than just a collection of dead things in boxes and jars. You are returning with a new and profound understanding of the intricate, interconnected, and fragile nature of life itself. The deep forest has tested you, and in doing so, it has taught you everything. The decision to turn back marks a profound psychological shift in your expedition. The exhilarating, forward-driving spirit of discovery has been replaced by a new and heavy sense of responsibility. Your focus is no longer on the unknown that lies ahead, but on the vast, precious, an incredibly fragile collection of knowledge that you now carry with you. The journey is no longer one of exploration. It is now a slow, anxious retreat, a race against the relentless forces of decay. The trek back through the deep forest, retracing the path you so laboriously carved, is in many ways more difficult than the journey in. You and your crew are now burdened not just with your own supplies, but with the considerable weight of your scientific treasure. There are the heavy wooden crates filled with carefully pinned insects. The bulky plant presses thick with paper and drying specimens, and the sloshing, fragile glass jars containing your preserved reptiles and fish. Every step of the journey is fraught with a low-grade, gnawing anxiety. Every slippery route that threatens to trip a porter, every steep, muddy bank that must be scrambled down, every narrow stream that must be waded across is a moment of potential catastrophe. You find yourself watching the porters who carry your insect boxes with a hawk-side focus, your heart lurching with every stumble. A single fall, a single cracked box, could reduce a month's worth of painstaking work to a useless pile of dust and broken antennae. After what feels like an eternity, the familiar broad gleam of the main river appears through the trees. The sight of the sturdy Batella moored safely where you left it brings a wave of relief so profound it almost brings you to your knees. Joe, who has been patiently waiting, greets you with a quiet nod. He sees the weariness in your face, the thinness of your frame, but also the new, hard-won authority in your eyes. The journey downriver is, in theory, much easier than the journey up. The powerful current is now your ally, carrying you swiftly towards the coast. You can cover the same distance in a day that took you a week to travel on the way in. but the speed of the journey only increases your anxiety. The dangers are different now, not of getting lost, but of a single catastrophic accident. Your daily routine shifts entirely from discovery to conservation. You are now a curator of a floating museum, and your work is a constant, methodical battle against the heat and the humidity. As soon as the morning mist burns off, you begin your daily ritual. The lids of the insect boxes are opened and propped up, allowing the dry heat of the sun to ward off the ever-present threat of mold. Your plant presses are completely disassembled. Every single sheet of paper, now damp from the moisture wicked from the plant specimens, is removed and laid out across the thatched roof of the boat to dry in the sun. The plant specimens themselves are carefully placed on fresh, dry sheets, a tedious and delicate process that consumes several hours of your day. You work with a quiet, focused intensity, your movements precise and unhurried. Check the wax seals on your specimen jars, searching for any cracks or leaks that might allow the preservative alcohol to evaporate, which would leave you with a jar of putrid, rotting flesh. You are no longer hunting for new species. You are fighting a defensive war against the very environment you came to study. The river itself, your great highway, is not without its own perils. One afternoon, as you navigate a wide, straight stretch of the river, Joe points ahead. The water's surface, usually a calm, brown expanse, seems to be growing darker, and you can hear a low, distant rumble that is not the sound of thunder. Pororoca, he says, his voice tight with concern. It is the Boar Tide, a powerful tidal wave that surges up the river from the Atlantic Ocean. A rare but incredibly dangerous phenomenon. There is no time to reach the bank. Joe shouts orders to your guides, who grab their paddles and work frantically to turn the boat's nose to face the approaching wave. The rumble grows into a deafening roar. You abandon all of your preservation work and scramble to secure your precious cargo, lashing the boxes and presses to the boat's frame with every spare piece of rope you can find. The wave, when it hits, is a churning 10-foot wall of brown water. It strikes the boat with the force of a battering ram, lifting it high into the air and then dropping it into the trough behind. Water crashes over the sides, soaking you and everything on board. For a terrifying minute, the boat is completely out of control, tossed about like a piece of driftwood. You cling to your crates, shielding them with your own body from the worst of the deluge. Your knuckles white, your mind filled with the horrifying image of your life's work sinking to the bottom of the river. Then, as quickly as it arrived, the wave passes, its energy dissipating as it continues its charge upriver. It leaves you in its wake, your boat half filled with water, your supplies in disarray, but miraculously still afloat. You and the crew work for the next hour, bailing out the water and assessing the damage. A barrel of salted meat has been lost, washed overboard. But your scientific collection, thanks to your desperate efforts, is safe. The paper in your presses is soaked, but the specimens themselves can be saved. The experience leaves you shaken, a stark reminder that even on this final leg of your journey, the Amazon can still reclaim everything you have taken from it in an instant. After several more weeks of this anxious travel, the first signs of the outside world begin to appear. You see a small, crude wooden cross on the riverbank, the sign of a remote missionary outpost. A few days later, you pass a large trading vessel, its European-style sails looking strange and alien in this setting. Finally, the familiar chaotic sounds and smells of the port town from which you departed so many months ago reach you. As you step onto the solid, familiar planks of the dock, the world feels strange and overwhelming. The sounds of the town, the shouting of merchants, the hammering of shipwrights, the clatter of horse-drawn carts are a harsh, jarring assault after the natural symphony of the forest. You are a changed man. Your clothes are in tatters, your skin is darkened by the sun and scarred by insect bites, and you are impossibly thin. But you have returned. More importantly, you have brought your collection back with you. Your return to the colonial port is not an end to your labors, but merely the beginning of a new and equally challenging phase. Preparing your collection for the great voyage across the Atlantic, the work that was required to protect your specimens from the humidity of the jungle must now be redoubled to protect them from the damp, salty air of a long sea voyage. You spend several weeks in the port, a period of intense and focused activity. You trade and sell the last of your expedition equipment to purchase sturdy, seaworthy chests. You hire a cooper to line them with tin, creating a precious barrier against the moisture and the gnawing teeth of the ship's rats. The packing itself is a task of almost religious solemnity. Each of your cork-lined insect boxes is carefully wrapped in a layer of oiled canvas and packed tightly with dried grasses to cushion it against the violent rolling of the ship. Your stacks of pressed plants, now dry and brittle, are bundled into portfolios and sealed in their own tin-lined case. Each specimen jar is inspected one last time, its cork stopper hammered in tight and then sealed with a thick final layer of black wax. You are entrusting your entire life's work, the sum of your discoveries, to these humble wooden chests. Finally, you secure passage on a merchant vessel bound for London. You watch with a heart full of anxiety as your precious crates are hoisted aboard and lowered into the dark, cavernous cargo hold. You have survived the perils of the jungle. Now you must trust your treasure to the unpredictable moods of the ocean. The voyage home is a long, slow, and profoundly monotonous affair. After the constant, overwhelming sensory input of the Amazon, the Atlantic is a vast, empty desert of gray water and gray sky. The days are marked only by the ship's bell and the changing of the watch. The crushing boredom is a challenge in itself, a stark contrast to the life-and-death vigilance of the past year. But this period of quiet and confinement provides you with something you have not had since you left London: time to think. In the cramped, damp confines of your small cabin, you finally have the opportunity to engage with the intellectual fruits of your labor. You spend your days not on deck, but at your small writing desk, your journals and sketches spread out before you. You begin the monumental task of synthesis. You read through your journals from beginning to end, reliving the entire journey in your mind. You begin to organize your thousands of disparate observations into a coherent structure. The meticulous descriptions of individual species are now grouped into families and genera. You start to outline the chapters of the great book you intend to publish, a complete natural history of the regions you explored. By the dim light of a swaying whale oil lamp, you begin to write the formal Latin descriptions of the species you believe are new to science. You work from your detailed field sketches, your memory, and your notes, painstakingly crafting the precise economical prose that will introduce these creatures to the scientific world. You are no longer just a collector. You are transforming into an author, a scholar, patiently turning the raw chaos of your experience into an ordered, shareable body of knowledge. After nearly 3 months at sea, the cry comes from the lookout: land. You rush onto the deck and see it on the horizon, a low, familiar smudge of green and gray under a cool, cloudy sky. It is the coast of England. A feeling of profound relief, so powerful it almost brings you to your knees, washes over you. London is a shock. It is a world of stone and smoke. A cacophony of iron-shod wheels on cobblestones, of shouting vendors and ringing bells. After the vibrant, living sounds of the jungle, the city seems monstrously loud, a chaotic, mechanical roar. The air is cold and tastes of coal smoke. The people, with their pale faces and heavy dark clothes, seem like a different species. You are a stranger in your own land, a man whose senses and soul have been recalibrated to a different world. Your first and most urgent task is to oversee the unloading of your collection. Stand on the busy docks for hours, your anxiety rising with every crate that is hoisted from the ship's hold. Finally, the last chest is set down before you. With a crowbar, you pry open the lid of the first case. You lift out a box of butterflies, unwrap the oilcloth, and lift the lid. There they are, a row of blue morphos, their iridescent wings as vibrant and perfect as the day you collected them. Your collection has survived. It has come home with you. In the weeks that follow, you present your findings to your patrons at the Royal Society. You uncrate your collection in a grand, dusty hall. Under the curious gaze of the most learned men in England, you lay out the drawers of impossible insects, portfolios of strange and beautiful plants, the jars containing the glass frog and the armored catfish. A hush falls over the room. These men are accustomed to the muted browns and greens of European specimens. They have never seen color so vibrant, forms so strange. They crowd around the tables, peering through their spectacles. Murmuring in a mixture of Latin and English, their initial skepticism melting away into unconcealed wonder. But it is not just the specimens themselves that command their respect. It is the sheer, overwhelming quality of your documentation. You present your journals, their pages filled with thousands of meticulous notes. You unroll your watercolor illustrations, their colors and details as precise and lifelike as the specimens themselves. You have not just brought back curiosities, you have brought back data, a vast, ordered, and undeniable body of scientific evidence. By the end of the presentation, your reputation is sealed. You are not just a collector. You are a serious and important man of science. Your long, perilous, and often lonely journey is validated in this room. You have returned from the green heart of the world, and you have brought a piece of its magnificent unknown story back with you. The applause in the halls of the Royal Society eventually fades, and the initial excitement surrounding your return gives way to a new, quieter, and far longer phase of your life's work. The adventure of the expedition is over, but the scholarship has just begun. The next 20 years of your life are not spent hacking through jungles or navigating treacherous rivers, but in the quiet, dusty confines of a London study, surrounded by the ghosts of the Amazon. Your life is now a routine of patient, intellectual labor. Each morning, you walk to the museum, where your collection is now housed in grand mahogany cabinets, each drawer filled with the treasures you brought back. You work with a team of engravers, painstakingly translating your watercolor illustrations into the fine, black and white copper plates that will be printed in your book. You spend weeks debating the classification of a single, ambiguous species of fern with other botanists, sending letters back and forth across Europe. The great work of your life is the writing of your magnum opus, a multi-volume natural history of the Amazon. It is a slow, methodical process. You sit at your desk, the sounds of London a distant murmur outside your window. You transport yourself back to the deep forest. You describe the intricate structure of an orchid, your prose as precise and detailed as your original sketches. You recount the behavior of a troop of monkeys, the life cycle of a butterfly, the chemical properties of a medicinal plant. You are translating the chaotic, vibrant, living world of the jungle into the ordered, silent, and permanent world of the printed page. Your collection becomes a cornerstone of the museum, a resource for generations of scholars to come. 100 years after your death, a young student of entomology will open a drawer, see a row of perfectly preserved beetles, and read the small, yellowed paper tag beside one of them. It will bear your name, the location, and the date. 1769. For a moment, a direct, unbroken line will be drawn from a quiet museum in the age of steam and industry back to a specific, sun-dappled afternoon in a world of unimaginable green. This is your legacy. The specimens you collected are no longer just your discoveries. They are now the shared knowledge of humanity. You grow old. Your adventures become the quiet, half-forgotten stories you tell to your grandchildren. You build a small glass house in your garden, where you successfully cultivate a few of the hardier species of orchid you brought back. They're impossibly vibrant flowers, a small living piece of the Amazon in the cool, gray English climate. You find that you can never truly convey the reality of your experience to those who were not there. You can describe the shape of a leaf, but you cannot describe the feeling of the humid air, thick with the scent of damp earth. You can show them a preserved snake in a jar, but you cannot make them feel the cold spike of fear at seeing one coiled on the path. The deep, resonant, and ever-present sound of the jungle is a symphony that now plays only in your memory. One quiet evening, in the final years of your life, you are sitting in your study. You are an old man now, your hands spotted with age, your movements slow. Unlock a small personal cabinet and take out one of your original collecting boxes from the expedition. You lift the lid. Inside, pinned to the cork, is a single, magnificent blue morpha butterfly, its wings still shimmering with an otherworldly electric blue. You gently touch the small, handwritten paper tag beside it, and for a moment the dusty, silent room fades away. You are young again. You're standing in a small, sunlit clearing in the Amazon. You can feel the heat on your skin, hear the buzz of insects in the air, and you are filled with a sense of wonder so profound it feels like a prayer. Your great journey is over. Your work is done. Your discoveries are safe on the pages of books and in the drawers of museums. You have brought back a small piece of the infinite, and it will now last forever. You close the lid of the box with a soft final click. Our journey with the 18th-century naturalist is now at an end. We have felt the oppressive heat of the jungle, smelled the damp, rich earth, and witnessed the painstaking, patient work of scientific discovery. It was a world where wonders were hidden in plain sight, where survival depended on a deep and quiet wisdom, and where the reward for immense hardship was a single, perfect, and previously unknown fact. That world of rustling leaves, vibrant colors, and the constant hum of life has now faded away, leaving only the quiet of the present moment. The naturalist's long and patient day is over, and now, so is yours. There is nothing left to do but to rest, to let go of the day, and to drift into the deep and peaceful sleep that you deserve. Sleep well.